Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Talent Intelligence podcast from Solutions Driven. Got a really interesting one today, which is very recruitment centric, which you'd think would be the norm for a recruitment company, but we get into lots of kind of business topics. This is going to be really interesting though. I will let our guest introduce himself in just a moment. But we're going to be talking about everything from how to make sure you're using technology to engage with candidates and hiring managers and keep everyone aware of what's going on in the process, that transparency, that communication. So I think it's going to be an interesting one, and I'm joined by Nowicki from Sungrow. Nick, why don't you introduce yourself? The cheesy intro everyone has to do in these things.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for being on air today with you. So hello everyone. My name is Nick, 35 years old, born and bred Bavarian. I'm running the show here at Sungrow, having a bit of an IT background, a little bit of recruiting here and there, a bit of language background, right? So now the talent acquisition manager and building everything up from the ground. That should be about the description about what I'm doing.
I know that feeling. So as such, you get involved in a bit of everything, and I think sometimes it's really great to hear from talent acquisition and HR leaders at these huge companies who have a whole team at their feet that can, I suppose, split jobs between themselves and they can probably do more. But as one individual who's trying to manage all of this process, I think from our previous conversations, something you've done a lot of and seem really passionate about is how to make sure technology is your friend, and it's not just sort of a thing that's there to do a task that you want to do, which that you don't want to do. Which I think sometimes we can be guilty of, both in sales and recruitment. Tell us a bit about that. I know there's one particular tool that you sort of evangelize about. This is certainly not sponsored, but I'm sure their name will be dropped a couple of times. I think the first thing is to get into the hiring process as a whole. Transparency, engaging the hiring managers, making sure they know what's going on, making sure you know what they want, they know what's happening from a candidate perspective. So maybe kind of shed some light for us if you can on how you manage that process, because there's a lot of transparency involved in the way you work from what you've told me previously, which I thought was really interesting and others I think could find useful too.
Correct. So thanks for that introduction. So in fact, Dave, where can I start from? So first of all, when I joined 2 years before, my boss actually hired me on the premise, look, you would be my number one recruiter. We don't have any. You have to recruit all across Europe. And we know how many countries we have there with language and laws and whatnot. And it was like, okay, listen, renewable energies, right? You want to grow also. I mean, I can create traffic. That's okay. But we need to keep track on it. We need to retain the people. So we need a tool, right? Do you have a tool? Nope. Okay, then you want me to come? Then we need to buy a tool as well. Otherwise, my work is just, droplets on the hot stone. Long story short, let's go forward. I knew that I was the only recruiter for many, many countries. So I knew in order to be effective to keep all these pipelines glowing, I need a tool in which I can keep track, and partially I can distribute my task for pre-screening as a recruiter to parts of the department leaders, right? Because I don't have time as a single recruiter to hop into 45 different pipelines. So yes, big takeaway, guys, ladies and boys and gents out there, for the recruitment here: make your job part of someone else's job. So of course, and here's the first name drop. Here in Germany, we have a startup. It's called Personio. It's a unicorn. We had that right before Dave. And basically, let's say it like this: you have an HR platform, which is basically to have all the documents collected, holidays, everything that a person has an account and can put something in there, can request holidays. Very simple. So before being a colleague, you've been a candidate. So there's also this, let's say, recruiting platform attached to it. The whole platform comes with roles, and roles are extremely important because technically I have all my people on the same platform, and technically they could all overrun my pipelines, commenting wild and whatnot. But of course, with a properly installed role system, who is a tactical reviewer who is only allowed to see, let's say, a CV, and maybe can just comment, oh, this is interesting, let's make an interview with each other, right? Or someone who is actually a hiring manager who can also see, above that notice period, maybe salary expectations and stuff. Something that we also should in the future change, like how we deal with the holy mystery of salary, with salary bands. But it's a different topic, right? So by setting up that as first of all as a base to make sure I know who's allowed to see what, who can make, that we can talk the same language. Whenever you comment here on this profile of this individual, we will just take care in the background, making sure we have an interview together. And then afterwards, I already opened that. After there was some learning, curve. I made a little scrum sprint with every month, let's say. I gave them more and more rights to do something, because at the beginning they need to learn. You need to learn how to basically work like an HR guy. Okay, you can't just come in like a storm, throw people around. There needs to be a process behind it, Dave, right? But the secret was really to partially give them more and more rights, let them feel how a recruiter works, let them pre-screen themselves, right? And just give me the things what I really need to do.
Yeah.
But that also was more effective.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you say about everyone speaking the same language. And I think, just to take a step back from that for a moment, what you say about just, restricting some of what people can do initially as they learn. Sometimes just having a process and running with it for a while can have amazing effects because people see the results and then they start wanting to get that bit more bought in. But when it comes to speaking the same language, that's really interesting because, as recruiters at Solutions Driven, that's what we do. One of the biggest themes we see, certainly maybe we pick up a role that's been open for a long time and it's a hiring team who think they're speaking the same language. But actually, when a third party comes in and listens to what everyone else is saying, there's some quite clear disparities there between what people are really looking for, and that's what's causing that kind of lack of the right candidate, because there's an inconsistency there. So from what you're saying, do you think this has had a really big impact on your hiring teams, your hiring managers being able to make sure that they know what they're looking for, the candidates know what they need to deliver, and everyone is speaking the same language through the process? Is that kind of been the end result of all the work you've done then over the last 2 years?
Yeah. Like I would say I agree to 70%. 70% was really just simply finding a common language that everyone knows. What do we want to achieve here actually? What kind of profile is it? What would fill the boots properly here? And then of course, by simply mimicking each other, copying from each other, because they can see each other's comments, they can see each other's evaluations after an interview, especially the evaluation side is displayed very nicely and very crispy. Everyone can rate with little stars, right? And then you see also the way someone comments on profiles, and then they really started to copy from each other, align with each other, and then vibe with each other. And meanwhile, our system is really like a conveyor belt. So everyone pretty much knows what button to click. They require an interview. Bam, bam, bam. Do this like that. Right now, I'm already preparing the next sprint, so to speak. We're also having, let's say, an education platform for trainings and stuff like this. And I'm already prepared first trainings and made first recordings on teaching them how to schedule interviews on their own with this scheduling tool, right? That's fully automatic and blah, blah, blah. By that, you can really achieve this narrative, this big agenda of everyone can be a recruiter. Brackets on an operational side, at least.
Yes.
It's off.
No, that's fascinating. I think that level of transparency and means everyone sees the full process, but it also means each individual person part of that process is held accountable as well. Because
absolutely.
If people can see the full process, they know what's been done, what hasn't been done. So I think that could be the way you talk about it as a sprint. I think is interesting. It's something that maybe others can learn from. That's a very kind of technical way of looking at things. Sprints we talk about we hear developers talking about sprints, we hear engineers talking about sprints. We don't necessarily hear it from recruiters. But when you've got that distinct process.
But I have to be honest, Dave. When at the very beginning, when I started my work here, I had to roll out a platform. Surely whoever sells you such a platform will come with their own rollout agents and whatnot. But this is then just to let it function on a very crude base. But then you have to find your own ways within an organization. And here I was just doing one sprint after another, because as I said, I have a little of an IT project background. So this was helping me tremendously in my
Yeah.
work to properly roll this out and teach people. It was just what I did, besides signing contracts for people, right? So really bringing them up to speed, like how to communicate properly on the platform, that we do not use any words that might be harmful on a very on a very easy base. Like you can of course say, I don't like this candidate for ABC, but there is also here some words and wordings you should avoid, you should rephrase, that people start to see the world also through the eyes, and then we come to the recruiter.
Do you think it's had a measurable impact on the hiring process? Whether that's time to hire, whether that's the number of candidates you get through to final interview because it's increased engagement from them. Are you measuring those impacts too?
The good thing is such a platform like this one comes also with little internal metrics. So of course, time to hire, time to offer, and time to hire. Like the time to offer for me is way more important than time to hire. As I told you, I'm sitting here somewhere in Munich, for instance, right? And I have to offer someone in Greece, to offer someone in UK, right? I mean, time to offer is really what we measure our process from first pre-screening to last interview to decision we want to offer. That's time to offer, right? But then time to hire, depending on the country, what situation we have there, do we maybe also need a third party to be involved because we don't have the legal entity yet, right? So this is greatly impacting it. But as you can see, right, we have already some metrics in place. And to answer your question, finally, this guy is talking way too much around. Yes,
I'm just as guilty of that too.
we actually found that now that all the departments did not, like, how is it normally? The departments say, hey, please HR, post this position on LinkedIn, and then they just wait, maybe write an email, so do we have candidates or whatnot? Very second someone comes in, I see that, but also the department sees that, depending on their roles. So there is not a second of delay any longer. While I'm still sitting in an interview or doing this podcast with you, maybe there are already 50 new candidates. 5 of them are already great, and already people commenting. And when I come back to this podcast, guess what? I have work to do because they already were doing their job that is actually mine, but it's in their interest. So yeah, I have more than measurable success here, to be honest.
Amazing. I think that's really, really interesting to
Engagement.
have. Yeah, that level of engagement from the hiring team is huge, because I think we speak to so many different hiring managers. It could be in sales, it could be in supply chain, it could be in operations, anywhere, and very often hiring is something that is handed off. And it's not because they don't want to be involved, it's that they feel maybe there's not enough time, they've got other priorities. But actually making it that visible, that transparent, is
correct.
Making sure that everyone's accountable for the end goal. So the delegation is no longer an issue, because actually everyone plays their own individual part. And if you don't play your part, it becomes clear. So it's almost forced engagement in a way, but in the most positive way possible, I suppose.
But we become one big membership of, well, let's say success and suffering. Let's say, of course, right now we were very successfully recruiting.
That's interesting. Yeah, I suppose it gives, and again, we've said it a lot already, it goes to that level of transparency. People see your day job. The irony, I suppose, is as a recruiter, you probably know more about the day jobs of your hiring managers than they know about yours. And this flips that.
Exactly. Because normally this is, this the holy grail of an organization. What are the HR people doing? Oh, don't ask them, or they take 1 or 2 holidays of you. No, this is so great that they see. Of course, there is some very confidential stuff that we're doing here, but on the other end, on the easier end, look how we work. Look what we do on a daily basis, and see what we struggle with, and see what we really celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And how do you feel this has affected things from a candidate perspective? Because I think it's really important to talk about engagement from a hiring manager and a hiring team, and make sure everyone's on the same page or speaking the same language, to use your phrase. From a candidate perspective, obviously it gives internally you all the same view of who's coming through. You can all leave your comments and things as you've talked about. How does it sort of benefit both you when it comes to engaging candidates and keeping them engaged throughout the process, but also them in terms of, does that same level of transparency and accountability go down that side of the process as well? They know what's coming next, who they're going to be talking to, what type of feedback they're getting. Does it work on that side too, do you think?
I mean, of course, on the candidate side, to a lesser extent, but still, you can feel it. The best example today, I had another marketing interview, and in fact, it was a second interview, a final one, and here we also shared a marketing task. The hiring, the candidate sent us back, and of course, sending us something back, I make it publicly visible within this very determined group of people. Everyone already sees the same stuff, can already comment and debate on the profile in order to prepare for the candidate. When the candidate comes in, there are no questions amongst each other. We already
Mhm.
know who asks what question, who wants to give proper feedback to the task, what is done, blah, blah, blah. So I think now with this wonderful world that we live in, the century of information and information overflow, we actually we appear to be better informed and prepared for the candidate. No
Yeah.
double questions, no triple questions. Hey, this has been asked in the first interview. Thank you. Everything is, documented. We're all on the same, literally, we're all on the same page here.
Yeah. I think that's just as important for candidate engagement as actually, what happens in between parts of the process. I think if you're going into an interview and it's quite clear that the panel or the person you're talking to is well prepared, they know you, they know the task that you've done, they've seen it, it's not been managed through a lengthy email thread that two people haven't read because they got to it 10 emails behind and couldn't be bothered catching
Bam.
up.
Now you said it. Now you said it. I don't want to know how many people are still dealing with email recruiting.
Yes.
This is the scourge of recruiting, email recruiting. Because of
Yeah.
course, as you said, there is this that succession of email messages. Who's reading the last 16 emails? Maybe the last 3, 4 are important enough, right?
Mhm.
To even add that, and I think here it will become a way better add-on to for the candidates, because besides just commenting on evaluations, which is an internal tool, we
Mhm.
also have an email string. So within this tool, you have a fixed email address, but whoever uses this email gets basically displayed as Nick, Max, Frank, but it's basically one email thread. No
Uh-huh.
CC, nothing. We all read the same big long email, and just depending on who is writing the email gets displayed on the email head, but everyone,
Right.
we all see the very same string. So that's something also that, of course, aligns us. So in the eyes of the candidate, it appears that every time someone new is coming into the conversation, but and seems to be super informed already about what's happening, the truth of the matter is, it's just one big
Yeah.
email thread that we all use at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it creates clarity, doesn't it? Which is really important, I think, for
Clarity,
both sides.
exactly.
Yeah. So let's look forward then, because as we record this, it's getting towards the middle of January, in 2023. We've had
Mm.
a slightly crazy last 2 or 3 years when it comes to recruitment. Some
Slightly.
sectors up and down all over the place, others still in boom, some really struggling at the moment. It's quite difficult to pin down what's going to happen next in a way. Um,
Yeah.
Technology is something I think that comes into almost every conversation we have, with recruitment and HR leaders at the moment, because it's seen as a bit of a silver bullet in many ways, and the fix all. All our
Mm.
problems can be fixed if we find the right tool.
Oh, yeah. You're
Now,
finding the right
I,
words right now.
I wonder if you had a little bit of an advantage coming in from the outside, bringing a tool in when you started a role, and
Hmm.
then leading that project. That was yours. You had accountability for
Yes.
that. Where we may have, let's say, an internal recruitment team, handful of people, could even be more than that, many of whom might have been there for years, and their processes are well defined, but they're not necessarily getting the benefits of everything we're talking about here. That's
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
technology can be quite daunting, because change is scary. So
Change
it
is
wasn't change for you
wonderful.
necessarily because you knew it was needed. So there's a bit of a debate there about how we use technology when process is something I was in recruitment talk about all the time,
Mm.
and process change when we don't necessarily know it's going to work. can be a bit of a scary world. I mean, how much, for example, kind of kickback did you have when you were interviewing at Sungrow from saying, we need this. If you want me, you need to do this. Was that a sticking point?
Yeah.
Was it a big debate?
I mean, the good thing is if you can sell your argument well, if you can really make your case, you can state your case. You will always meet open ears. I mean, the good thing was that my boss back then, she kind of knew what I was aiming at, right? Hey, you want me to create traffic? I can create your traffic. So, and then can you handle my traffic? Can you handle my traffic? Can you make sure that the people I bring in are retained properly? That the people are, onboarded properly? How can you guarantee by so much traffic? Because back then I was about to increase the whole flow by 250%. This was she needed the first recruiter, right? So she knew that we need something because also for documentation, contracts, payroll, we need a sophisticated tool. Period. Now, the good thing is I was already meeting open ears there. That was all right. Surely, imagine, Dave, you're in a sophisticated, maybe successful middle class environment, 600 people working there, and now suddenly you have to change systems there. Of course, people do not like change. The most constant thing in life, change, is something that we human beings have learned is bad, because of course change always means I have to let go of some habits. And oh my God, habits are the best drug in the life of human beings. We love our habits and cling to it, do we?
Yes, I am definitely a creature of habit, believe me.
to move forward here, surely, to like silver bullet, I would like to pick it up from there. Yes, digital tools, platforms, right? Platforms and then cloud-based services, they offer you a lot. But, and here's the crux to all of it, make sure you find yourself 1 or 2, tops 3 big platforms, and then try to connect them properly. I have met also other, or like this is also something that we right now we consolidate, we find redundancies in our environment organization, because our organization amongst all the different countries grew, and now we need to grow together. So some have their own their own cloud service, some have their own internal comms, some have this, some have that. So right now, and let's come back to HR, we made sure we selected this Personio, for instance, right, that are now working, and these guys have really, really understood the passion of this time right now. They're really working hard now, not only to further develop their own platform, but also to create more APIs. And API is, in my eyes, the word for the 21st century. Use connections where connections can be made, make more connections where no connections are at all. I think Galileo Galilei said that, right? Like that.
I'm sure it was somebody.
No, of course not.
That's a huge point. A huge point. And consolidation is a word we hear a lot at the moment with people that have these huge tech stacks. And like you say, if none of them talk to each other, you might be creating more problems than you're actually solving. And
absolutely, because you drown in your own digital overflow that you have created there. Make sure you completely analyze the business needs for your operations and make sure, like, I already bought this solution and I'm using 60% of it. They're in the price that I'm buying, because let's talk also about money now for the first time after how many minutes did we have in this call now? Thank you. So many people spend a lot of money into different platforms. So make sure if you bought something big, try to use all of it as much as possible. Get rid of all the other stuff. You're saving money for sure. And now try to find all the juicy APIs to services that talk into the big one. So you don't need another big platform.
I think that's interesting.
Hallelujah.
The phrase is single point of truth, I suppose, is the phrase we use often, isn't it?
Yes,
and, have everything going into one central place. And I think it's funny, I get into a lot of conversations about the similarities between sales and recruitment. And that, sales has had probably a head start in this kind of technology. But a lot of the things that sales tech does, recruitment can make huge use of and get huge value from too. It's probably just 5 to 10 years behind. And that single point of truth thing is something that if you ask any sales team, they'll have a CRM that is the point that everything talks to.
Mm.
Because there's a SaaS company for every little thing out there. If you can find a little
Absolutely.
challenge, there'll be a SaaS company that's built something to fix it.
Absolutely.
Can you buy 50 different little tools? Yes. Will they all talk to each other? No. Can you have 2 or 3 bigger ones that might not be as good as those individual things because they're not specializing in it, but that will give you everything in the same space? I think that's huge. And I think that's a huge maybe point to watch for recruitment over the next couple of years. And you might be ahead of the curve on that in a way.
Exactly.
Driving
And of course,
change.
and we still haven't talked about, also what does all this stuff, because right now we talked about what does this tool do for the bigger good, for the bigger organization. But now let's talk also about for the recruiter myself. I mean, in a tool like this, I funnel, like from this tool, I shoot out all my job descriptions, all my job applications, my promotions, whatever, but they all lead back to this platform. So everyone will just come out in here, we process them through, then I can make an offer there. I already have my contract templates in there that I can fill out with placeholders within seconds. Bam, contract created, send it out via PDF for review. You're fine, you're accepting it. Just give me 10 seconds pulling a red lever on this contract, and I'm actually creating a safe realm in that moment and offer a digital signature. First, my hiring manager signs, then the candidate. 10 seconds later, bam, we both have the 2 drafts, the 2 copies of the contract, and here we go. I'm in awe of how easy it is nowadays to find common ground to work with each other.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question then, as David Bowie keeps appearing on my shoulder.
I love this, by the way. David Bowie constantly like, hello there, hello there, hello there. That's me, Dave. That's me, Dave.
Zoom recognizes his face and tries to get him in there. So I could blur my screen. I could have a background. He still works his way in there. I could move the poster, but I weirdly like it. Anyway, the question for you on that, because I think we're talking here a lot about process, about structure, about getting the admin of the recruitment job done and is done as easily, transparently, and collaboratively as possible. How does that then affect you being able to do what we could call the human aspect of being a recruiter? You mentioned there about getting your job descriptions out, getting your ads out. When it comes to actually engaging with candidates one-to-one, with proactively sourcing candidates for a role that might be proving tricky and you're not getting the inbound traffic, does it actually give you more time to really feel like you can engage in those aspects of being a recruiter more than you did before?
I have to search the amount of yeses I'm about to give you. But it should be between 3 and 4, obviously. Now that I literally switch with my brain sometimes. When I just have created another job, I just do my routine clicks, and after click number 6 or 7, I don't know what it is, I know that this job just landed on 21, 22 different platforms, and I didn't even waste a single brain cell for this thing, because it's a very much it's automation, it's a routine task, switch off your brain, store the energy still. Now I'm going to an interview that I have, and I use all my, I don't know what you want to call it, my charms, whatever, to work on this prime candidate. Oh yes, Dave, I have so much time now to simply focus on a human-centered design process. There is a new client coming in, right? So a candidate that we know he's actually a prime candidate. He's now starting the process with us. I know he already has 2 offers because within the industry he has a certain name. Now what I need to do, I definitely need to make sure that we shine out.
Yes.
And now I can focus because I know I don't have this, oh my God, there's still this job to post there. Oh, I have to refresh it there. Oh, how about making the change of the job on the 22 post sites that we have? No, I just click 2 times and that's it. All my energy is still stored and focused on this guy. Sometimes I can even do it during interviews when I have to shut up. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. And I'm still astounded, last sentence in this one, how many firms, enterprises, whatnot, are still working on this very archaic way of, please send us your application via post, or give us your like, even though we want you to hand us in your CV and your references, now on our talent platform, please type in again what university you've been to, what school, what was your grade, where we live in, Dave. Come on.
It's you're so right. I mean, I can't remember where it was published, but there was a statistic I saw recently that something along the lines of 60-65% of online application processes are, the candidate quits less than halfway through because there's too much admin. They're being asked to repeat themselves too much. And I think to your point about having time to really engage with the person you're interviewing, the candidates you're sourcing, that's got to be the end goal, right? We can talk about shortening time to hire or time to offer, as you mentioned, but if technology is making your role harder, not easier, something's wrong. And that's its job. It should allow you to be a human rather than a data input kind of robot, which we've all felt like from time to time, I think. But listen, I think we'll finish there. There's so much here. We could go on for hours and hours. I think it's
most certainly
it's a growing topic. Technology and recruitment, I think is going to be fascinating to watch over the next couple of years. But no, thank you so much for your time.
Keyword AI, right? Keyword AI
exactly.
and AI sourcing, and
it's going to be
writing
our job specs for us in 6 months. You could probably do it now, to be honest.
I already start trying how it would perform just to, but I won't really use it because so far we have great templates and stuff, and then how to phrase it in a very human-centered manner. I have my certain humor that I always write in these job descriptions, but yes, this will come.
It's coming.
We will see it within this year. But
I think you're almost certainly right.
That's a topic for the second half of the year, Dave.
Why
What
not?
do you think?
Why not? Let's have you back. Thanks very much. Really appreciate your time. And
Likewise.
Have a great 2023.
Likewise, Dave. See you soon, man. Bye-bye.